Welcome to Think About It with your host, Jaden Miller.
Good day. I want to welcome you back to Think About It with Jaden Miller. I hope that you guys are doing well. I am returning after a 1 week leave from Think About It with Jaden Miller. I'm happy to be back. I got married last week, Saturday, and we went on our honeymoon, and so we are back. Of course, I got married to the lovely Tanisha. And so we had a wonderful honeymoon. Of course, we had a wonderful wedding. And we will come together in an upcoming episode and talk to you about our wedding and talk to you about our honeymoon. So we are certainly looking forward to you all joining us in that upcoming episode of Think About It with Jaden Miller. Again, it is great to be back. I want you to continue to like, share, and subscribe on my YouTube channel. And please follow, like, comment on your favorite podcast platform. All right. So I'm back today. It's Sunday. It's actually Halloween. And I figured this would be a good day to talk about a topic that many people have to deal with. Many people suffer from. So today I'm going to talk to you all about OCD, which is Obsessive-Compulsive Disorder. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about anxiety and depression and how these things work together, unfortunately. And we're going to talk about some ways that you can manage these things. All right. It's a topic that's near and dear to me. And so I think it's something that I would like to delve into. And again, feel free to comment on my YouTube channel, or you can comment on your favorite podcast platform as well. Well, let's talk about this a little bit. Obsessive-Compulsive Disorder. What is Obsessive-Compulsive Disorder? And then how does this relate back to anxiety and stress? Well, Obsessive-Compulsive Disorder, better known as OCD, features a pattern of unwanted thoughts and fears, obsessions, that lead you to do repetitive behaviors, which are compulsions, all right? These obsessions and compulsions interfere with daily activities and cause significant distress. You may try to ignore or stop your obsessions, but that only increases your distress and anxieties. Ultimately, you feel driven to perform compulsive acts to try to ease your stress. Despite efforts to ignore or get rid of bothersome thoughts or urges, they keep coming back. This leads to more ritualistic behavior, which is the vicious cycle of OCD. All right. OCD often centers around certain things. For example, an excessive fear of getting contaminated by germs. To ease your contamination fears, you may compulsively wash your hands until they're sore and chapped. If you have OCD, you may be ashamed and embarrassed about the condition, all right? But treatment can be effective. And so, for those of you all out there that suffer from OCD, there's nothing to be ashamed of, okay? Because this is a compulsion, a disorder that impacts lots and lots of people, all right? And don't let anybody shame you either, okay? Sometimes people make jokes about people that have OCD and that kind of thing. Well, it is a very, very serious disorder. All right. And so I wanted to talk about this today for those that suffer from OCD and as I mentioned, those that might have some anxiety or depression or stress that goes along with it. All right. It's a very, very serious thing. All right. Obsessive-compulsive disorder usually includes both obsessions and compulsions, all right? But it's also possible to have only an obsession symptom or only compulsion symptoms. You may or may not realize that your obsessions and compulsions are excessive or unreasonable, but they take up a great deal of time and interfere with your daily routine and social, school, or work function. All right, obsession symptoms are repeated, persistent, and unwanted thoughts, urges, or images that are intrusive and cause distress or anxiety. You might try to ignore them or get rid of them by performing a compulsive behavior or ritual. These obsessions typically intrude when you're trying to think of or do other things. Obsessions often have themes to them, such as fear of contamination or dirt, doubting and having difficulty tolerating uncertainty, needing things orderly and symmetrical, aggressive or horrific thoughts about losing control and harming yourself or others, or unwanted thoughts, including aggression, those kinds of things. All right. So those are obsessions, and they often, as I mentioned, have themes to them. Well, here are some signs and symptoms of obsession. Okay, fear of being contaminated by touching objects others have touched. All right, doubts that you've locked the door or turned off the stove. Intense stress when objects aren't orderly or facing a certain way, or they're not there where you last put them. Okay, unpleasant images. All right. Avoidance of situations that can trigger obsessions, such as shaking hands. All right. So those are obsessions. Let's take a look at compulsions. All right. OCD compulsions are repetitive behaviors that you feel driven to perform. These repetitive behaviors or mental acts are meant to reduce anxiety related to your obsessions or prevent something bad from happening. All right. However, engaging in the compulsions brings no pleasure and may offer only a temporary relief from anxiety. All right. So again, I want to welcome you guys to Think About It with Jaden Miller. All right. Again, I am coming back off of my wedding and my honeymoon, and glad to be back today. All right. Continue to like, share, and subscribe on my YouTube channel, and please follow and mention to others and comment on your favorite podcast platform. All right, today I'm talking about OCD, obsessive compulsive disorders, and how they relate to anxiety and stress. All right, so that's our topic today. All right, so I'm talking about compulsion symptoms. All right. So with compulsion symptoms, you may make up rules or rituals to follow that help control your anxiety when you're having obsessive thoughts. These compulsions aren't excessive and often are not realistically related to the problems they're intended to fix. All right. So as with obsessions, compulsions typically have themes such as washing and cleaning, checking on things, all right, to make sure that they're done, all right, counting, okay, orderliness, okay, or orderliness, yes, following a strict routine, all right, seeking or demanding reassurance, okay. These are obsessions, all right, or at least they have themes, all right, with that are common to obsessions, and then common to compulsions, all right. And so then there are examples of compulsion signs and symptoms would include hand washing until your skin becomes raw, checking doors repeatedly to make sure they're locked, checking the stove repeatedly to make sure it's off, maybe counting in certain patterns, maybe silently repeating a prayer, a word, or a phrase, arranging things, for example, like canned goods to face the same way, just making sure things are the way that you feel that they ought to be so that you can deal with the stress and the anxiety that you're dealing with. All right. So when we talk about OCD, the severity varies. All right. It can begin in the teen or young adult years, but it can also start in childhood. Symptoms usually begin gradually and tend to vary in severity throughout life. The types of obsessions and compulsions you experience can also change over time. Symptoms generally worsen when you experience greater stress. All right. So OCD usually is considered a lifelong disorder, and it can have mild to moderate symptoms or be so severe and time consuming that it becomes very, very disabling. All right. So the cause of obsessive compulsive disorder isn't fully understood. But here are the main theories. Some say that it's biology, all right, that OCD may be a result of changes in your body's own natural chemistry or brain functions. Genetics, OCD may have a genetic component, but specific genes have yet to be identified. and learning. Obsessive fears and compulsive behaviors can be learned from watching family members or gradually learned over time. All right. So, what are the risk factors? All right. I want you to think about it with me. What are the risk factors of OCD? All right. Factors that may increase the risk of developing or triggering obsessive compulsive disorder would include family history. So, for example, if you have family or parents with the disorder, this can increase your risk of developing OCD. Maybe there's some stressful life event, okay? If you've experienced trauma of some sort or some type of a stressful incident in your life, your risk for OCD may increase. This reaction may, for some reason, trigger the intrusive thoughts, the rituals, and the emotional distress characteristic of OCD. And then there may be other mental health disorders. OCD may be related to other things such as, and we're going to talk about this, anxiety disorders, depression, and those kinds of things. All right. So, what are some of the complications? What are the problems resulting from obsessive compulsive disorders? Well, excessive time spent engaging in ritualistic behaviors. There may be issues. I'm sorry. There may be health issues. All right. You may have difficulty attending work or school or social activities. All right. You may have troubled relationships and overall poor quality of life. And sometimes, unfortunately, you may have suicidal thoughts and behavior. All right. So, we're talking about OCD today, and we're talking about how anxiety and stress and depression can contribute to it. And I know, as I mentioned at the very beginning of this episode, that there are lots of people that suffer from OCD, and there are lots of people that suffer from anxiety and depression. And so, as I mentioned, sometimes this anxiety is triggered by some kind of obsessive compulsive thing that happens in your life, some type of a stressful event. All right. And so OCD is a real thing, and sometimes, as I mentioned, people don't take it so seriously. All right. They think that, oh, you just have to have things in a certain way. Well, it's just not that serious. It's not that simple. Sorry, it is very serious. It's just not that simple. Okay. Overanalyze. It's what some people think about people that have OCD. Well, it's not that. It's a fear associated with something happening. Okay. And so, again, quite often people don't understand these things because they don't deal with them, or they expect that you should just get over them really quickly. And it's not that easy. All right. So, we're talking about OCD, and I want to segue into anxiety a little bit, and hopefully kind of make some connection between them. But anxiety is one of the worst emotions a person can feel, or rather suffer from. Okay, again, OCD, anxiety, these are things that people suffer from. And so, things that I believe people should really, really take seriously. Those people that don't suffer from them should really have some empathy and compassion for those that do. While everyone can get anxious or nervous at any point of time due to external or internal factors, some people are unable to deal with frequent anxiety attacks. Anxiety may affect a person in different ways: panic attacks, some type of a phobia, or social anxiety. If you suffer from repeated worry, muscle tension, chronic indigestion, irrational fears, or panic, you may be suffering from anxiety. And some of these things may cause that OCD that we talked about. All right. Here are 12 things. Well, I may not go through all 12, but here's a number of things that people with anxiety do, which others around them would not understand until they understand the anxiety of the person. All right. So here's one for you: lack of sleep. People suffering from anxiety disorders suffer from disturbing sleep patterns. They are mentally overwhelmed and exhausted, because of which they have trouble sleeping at night. It works in two ways: either they sleep too much or find difficulty to get any sleep. All right. Here's another one for you: excessive paranoia. Every person is different. Some enjoy the thrills of life and some enjoy stability. People suffering from anxiety are often paranoid about how things could go wrong and not according to their plans. No matter how positive or safe a situation may be, people with anxiety will tend to think about how all things could possibly go wrong. All right, let's talk about this one for a minute. All right. There are people out there that think because, you worry about something that, well, you're paranoid. Okay. And again, it's often that people make jokes about these types of situations, and they're real serious for a number of people. All right. Well, if you've dealt with some traumatic incident in your life or some traumatic event in your life, okay, well, there's that possibility of you developing some form of paranoia, all right? And because you don't have control over a situation, all right, that's what increases this paranoia, all right? And when I say control, I don't mean controlling as in, being abusive in a controlling way, but just you have plans and you want your plans to go a certain way. However, circumstances out of your control, okay, cause something, or in your mind could possibly cause something to go wrong. Okay, so that's what we're talking about. All right. Here's another one. Analyzing every bit of conversation. Every thought and action is overanalyzed by them multiple times out of the fear that they are wrong. People suffering from anxiety tend to analyze every conversation they have had to make sure that they did not say anything that was incorrect. This is draining for the person and puts a lot of pressure on the person suffering. All right. So again, today we're talking about OCD, Obsessive Compulsive Disorder. All right. I started off our episode today talking about that. And so I segue into anxiety because these things work together, unfortunately. And the goal is to find ways to manage these things. All right. So what we're doing is we're talking about them and, talking about how anxiety can happen. All right. And hopefully people out there, family members, loved ones, will get to understand and know how to, and I hate to use the word deal with people with OCD or deal with people with anxiety issues, because those of us that suffer from them don't want you to deal with us. We just want you to understand. Okay. All right. So let's talk about another one. Always feeling guilty. This is one characteristic that most human beings lack. Okay. They have no sense of remorse or guilt. However, people with anxiety lie on the other end of the spectrum, and for every negative reaction, they are overwhelmed with guilt. Anytime something goes wrong or things don't work out as they were supposed to, people with this disorder are left feeling like it was all their fault and they could have done something to prevent the situation. All right. So here's an example. Let's say that you and your significant other get involved in some type of a dispute or conflict. Okay. And your reaction, okay, is a negative one in which your significant other, thinks that, well, you're mad at them, or, that you're being disrespectful to them, or that you're being aggressive towards them, which is really not the case. Okay. What's happening is that something did not go right. Okay. And you're not upset with them. What it is you're upset that you couldn't control the situation to make it better or make it go in a different way. It goes wrong. You accept all the guilt for that. Okay, so that's what that is. Okay, it's not that, well, I'm mad at you and it's all your fault and all of that. No, you have this overwhelming sense of guilt upon you. Okay, and you want to try to explain it to the other person, but when the other person doesn't understand what your anxieties are or what anxiety is or anxiety disorders are, that makes it very, very difficult. And so then the conflict gets even more worse, and the relationship, at least at that point, begins to suffer to some degree because people aren't communicating, people aren't being understood. All right. Here's another one: self-consciousness. Self-consciousness. Social anxiety does not come from stage fright or public speaking, but it goes all the way to just having a one-on-one conversation with someone. Have you ever been in that situation? Okay. In these situations, people suffering from anxiety will tend to believe and feel like all eyes are on them, watching their every move. All right. I want you to think about it now for a minute. Has that ever happened to you? that you have had some form of a social anxiety or some social consciousness, okay, where you feel like all eyes are on you, okay, and that everybody's watching your every move. All right. Well, so let's take someone that has anxiety, especially this type of social anxiety, and I want you to multiply that times 10. Okay. So you may multiply it by 1, but multiply it by 10 or more. Okay. All right. So again, they often experience symptoms like blushing or trembling or mumbling or stuttering, amongst many others. These symptoms can really be out of control and can prevent them from completely meeting new people. All right. So these are things that anxiety causes. All right. How about this one? Always comparing and evaluating. Okay. People with anxiety are always comparing and evaluating situations. They cannot help but compare themselves to people, mostly their friends and family. They often feel like other people are much, much more successful than they are, and they often overlook their own achievements. Since their benchmark of doing well is set by the others, it makes it extremely difficult for them to remain positive and hopeful. All right. Have you ever seen anybody? Think about it for a minute. Have you ever seen anybody, okay, that's really, really successful? All right. At least to your standards. I mean, much higher than you may be. All right. But yet they're always comparing themselves or evaluating situations themselves to other people that may not be doing as well as they are. Okay. They're doing so much better. All right. But there's always this comparison. These are people with this anxiety that deals with evaluating situations so often. All right. Often they overlook their own achievements. All right. This happens quite often. Here's another one. Scared of the future. All right. Scared of the future. Has this ever happened to you? If you're suffering from anxiety, or even if you don't suffer from anxiety, but you just suffer from life, let's just say. All right. The harsh truth of life is that it is uncertain. The only constant part of life is change, and that nothing will stay the same way forever. We already know this, okay? But we're dealing with people with anxiety. The thought of this uncertain future can cause a lot of anxiety and mental stress amongst those who suffer from this disorder. The constant fear of the unknown can be really difficult to deal with for them as well as those around them. A little sympathy and compassion for those who fear this will really help these people. Now, we talked here just a second ago about sympathy and compassion, all right? Well, are those hard emotions to provide to someone that has, some form of a disorder, whether it be obsessive-compulsive disorder, whether it be anxiety, those that have stresses and depression, all right? Okay, a little is what people that suffer from these things are asking for. A little sympathy, a little compassion, okay? Those that suffer from these things know that you may not be able to walk in the same shoes, okay? But you can be a little compassionate, okay? You cannot get upset at them, okay? Because they might be upset or stressed about something. Maybe take a step back and understand it from their perspective. All right. All right. I'm going to do a couple of more here. All right. Mistakes are hugely magnified. Mistakes are hugely magnified. All people make mistakes, and it is part of human nature to do so. Most of us look at mistakes as something we can learn from, but people with anxiety don't look at mistakes the same way. When they make a mistake, it is magnified, and they constantly beat themselves up for the mistake. Any small mistake or flaw is taken very seriously, and they cannot bear to go wrong. All right? So I want you to compare that one with the always feeling guilty. Those two go hand in hand. All right? So you're in a conflict with somebody. Let's say it's a significant other or something like that, and you make a mistake. All right? So then there's that guilt that goes along with it. All right? These are all of these things that are involved in anxiety. All right? So I want you to just, again, utilize a little bit of sympathy. Maybe use a little bit of compassion. All right? for someone that suffers from these things. And the last one I'll mention, as it relates to, some things that people suffering from anxiety do that other people don't understand, would be obsessing over the tiniest details. Okay, those suffering from an anxiety disorder tend to obsess over tiny details. They obsess about the smallest gestures, looks, or even a glance. The world around them makes them feel like something is not right or something is about to go very wrong, and hence even the smallest of actions seem too much for them to handle. The main reason behind such fear is that they have done something that is not right. The main reason behind such fear is that they have done something that is not right. I want you to think about that for a minute. The main reason behind such fear is that they have done something that is not right. This may lead them to constantly ask questions like whether they are okay, whether they have done something wrong, or if things are fine. This is the point where you should reassure them that nothing is wrong, okay? So, I've kind of, talked a little bit in terms of relationships, okay? Think about it for a minute as it relates to you and your significant partner. If one of you has anxiety, okay? So you feel as though something's not right, all right? And so you constantly ask them, are you okay? Have I done something wrong? Is everything fine? These are people that are suffering from anxiety. And then what happens is a person on the other side gets upset with them because they're asking these questions because they have this fear. They obsess over the tiniest details, even the smallest gesture you give them, as I mentioned, or a look or a glance, all right, makes them believe that something is going wrong. Again, I want you to remember that this anxiety stems from fear, all right? That's what we're talking about. It comes from these fears that people have, all right? And so again, I'm really being emotional about this because it's such a serious thing. And I think people would communicate better. People would understand a whole lot better if they would to just for a second, utilize some compassion or seek some understanding or do some research or, just put themselves in the position where they can communicate. And when I say communicate isn't always talking. Communication is also listening. Okay. All right. So, those are just some things I wanted to talk to you about, as it relates to that. What are some ways that trigger these different anxieties? Okay. Well, of course, we have the obsessive compulsive disorders. We have something that's traumatic that may have happened in your life. There might have been some negative thinking, okay? For example, your mind controls much of your body, and that's certainly true with anxiety. When you're upset or frustrated, the words you say to yourself can trigger greater feelings of anxiety. If you tend to use a lot of negative words when thinking about yourself, learning to refocus your language and feelings when you start down this path is helpful. So negative thinking is a way that can cause, anxiety to be triggered in a person. All right. What if you had some kind of financial concern? Okay. Worries about saving money or having debt can trigger anxiety. Unexpected bills or money fears are triggers too. All right. These are just some of those triggers that we talk about. How about conflict? Okay. That's one for everybody. Relationship problems, arguments, disagreements. These conflicts can all trigger or worsen anxiety. If conflict particularly triggers you, you may need to learn conflict resolution strategies. All right. So again, conflict is one of those anxiety triggers. What about the daily stressors of life? Okay. So we're talking about stress. All right. A traffic jam, okay, can cause anxiety. All right. When people have stress, it can also lead to behaviors like drinking too much alcohol or not getting enough sleep, like we mentioned a few minutes ago. All right. So these are just some of those things. All right. How about a personal trigger? All right. Let's say that there's some, bad memory of a traumatic event that happened in your life. All right. There are many individuals, and we won't talk about this one today because this is a totally different topic, but there are a lot of people that suffer from post-traumatic stress disorders, and they frequently experience anxiety triggers from environmental things, all right? So again, these are just, we're talking about anxiety today, all right? And it's such a serious subject, okay? That I'm glad that you all are listening and paying close attention. And if you know someone or you suspect someone that has anxiety, try to open up the door to communication with them. Use a little compassion and use a little sympathy for them. Maybe do some research to learn more about that topic. Whether it be anxiety or OCD or that kind of thing. All right. And it's really, really important that you listen to what they have to say. All right. Sometimes people like to talk a lot and people don't like to listen. Okay. Well, when you have someone that has anxiety or has some form of a disorder, like I mentioned, obsessive compulsive disorder, the time is to listen. Okay. Listen to what they have to say and listen to what they may need from you. Okay. If you're going to be someone's loved one and you're going to be in a relationship with them, okay, or if it's a family member's mom or and children or father and children or what have you, okay, all right, it's really, really important to listen to what they have to say, all right? Seek ways to help them, okay? Seek ways to reassure them, all right? That's so important, all right? Um, as we talk about this, I just want to talk a little bit more about how to explain anxiety to someone who may not get it, okay? Because some people don't get it, all right? But because they don't get it is not necessarily their fault. They just may not understand it. It's those people that choose to not understand, those people that choose to deny what's going on with you. Those are the ones that have the problem, okay? But we're talking about people that just may not get it. So let's talk about that really quick. And I want you to think about it. You're with me, Jaden Miller, on my podcast, Think About It with Jaden Miller. Please like, share, and subscribe on my YouTube channel. And again, if you would, podcast followers, I want you to continue to listen to me on your favorite podcast platform. And please share and comment as you please. I'm continuing to try to grow my podcast here. And again, I'm thankful that you guys are listening. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about this when it comes to anxiety, all right, and depression, all right, that goes along with the anxiety, all right. Anxiety can feel like every cell in your body is vibrating, vibrating with the need to run. Run from the room, run from the threat, run from your thoughts, run from the overwhelming energy building inside. Except you can't run, you can't escape it. So there's this physicality, there's physical things that go on in your body as a result of anxiety. All right. So this emotional push and pull takes a physical toll. When you have anxiety coupled with depression, you can continuously feel tired but can't sleep due to racing thoughts or agitation in your body. The depression can make you feel so lethargic that it's hard to move. However, your heart may race and stomach may ache from anxiety. It's hard to make sense of it yourself when you feel in a constant tug of war with yourself. All right? A single straw can and will break the camel's back. When struggling with anxiety, depression, what have you, you are often battling both at the same time, rarely finding a balance between them. When you find relief from one, it only means you feel more burdened by the other. Or it can feel like there are two monsters screaming louder and louder to be heard, feeding off each other. All right? Depression makes it hard to get out of bed, and anxiety only reminds you of the ever-increasing to-do list. Depression makes you feel worthless, and anxiety makes you feel like you aren't doing enough. All right? Those are those two monsters that we're talking about. All right? When you're already feeling a little anxious or depressed, it's easy for it to amplify and spiral out of control. Minor things that don't typically trigger a panic attack or a depressive episode may do so because your system is already primed. All right. So let's say, for example, you have some kind of obsessive compulsive disorder. Okay. And let's say you find something out of place. All right. Well, now your anxiety is triggered, okay, which may lead to that depression. All right. Let's say that you're looking for something and you can't find it. Okay. You always put it in this location. All right. And you simply want to know where it is. All right. No one seems to be able to help you at the time. Okay. No one seems to know what you're talking about, but you're not crazy. All right. You know that you always put it here. All right. Well, now something that can be small any other day, okay? Today it's amplified and it's spiraling out of control, okay? It's these minor things, okay? Maybe it was misplaced, or maybe somebody took it and misplaced it, or maybe someone took it by mistake, okay? Well, again, it's now blown out, it's spiraled out, okay? And it's causing now this panic attack. It's causing this depressive episode, all right? And because you're already compulsive, okay, and you know that you put things in a certain place because you always want to be able to find them because you know that's a stressor, okay? It's unfortunate when people don't understand, okay? You're not angry, okay? You're anxious. There's a difference between being angry and being anxious, all right? Now you're moving into a depressive state, okay? All right? These are all working together against you, all right? All of these different emotions, all right? Let me say this. Even though anxiety and depression are used to describe emotions that everyone has, it is not an emotion but a disorder for some. Anxiety and depressions are emotions that everyone feels at time in response to stressors. At this occasional frequency, they are a normal, healthy part of life where you can expect the emotions to subside once the stressor has passed. However, for those with anxiety and depression, these emotions don't subside. They don't just disappear once the stressor has passed. Instead, they are persistent and built upon each other as more stressors are encountered throughout the day. All right. So, as I've said, it's easy to dismiss anxiety and depression, but you shouldn't. Okay. If you or a loved one has been struggling with depression and anxiety or obsessive compulsive behaviors for a while, it can be easy to begin to dismiss it, even unintentionally. For a loved one, it is difficult to time and time again be supportive. Reactions start emerging. You may feel like the depressed or anxious person is overreacting, or being lazy, or being too sensitive, or they should just let it go, or they're looking for attention, or being a failure, or they're upset, or they're mad, or all of those things. However, these dismissive thoughts or negative stereotypes often keep those suffering with them from talking about their experiences. It is hard for many to share how they feel, let alone share when it runs the risk of them being seen differently or being abandoned. All right. Dismissing what someone is struggling with only adds to that person's feelings of isolation, which can feed depression and anxiety. All right. If your loved one is struggling with depression or anxiety, supporting them doesn't mean you're making it too easy, coddling, or enabling them. It does not. Yes, your fears may feel valid. If you don't support someone who is experiencing depression and anxiety to move past these emotions and the issues that cause them, are they ever going to get better? But the key here is support, okay? Pushing or challenging them can exacerbate an already stressful situation and make them feel worse, all right? So there are some ways, all right, that you can support someone who has anxiety, depression, OCD, all right? See, it can be a very, very lonely experience. So doing things together can help. It may seem small, but simple things like going to get coffee or watching television together can leave an impact. Stay connected with them by checking in and just letting them know you care. All right. When talking about OCD or talking about depression or anxiety, try to listen more than talk to understand how the person is truly feeling. Ask open-ended questions like, how are you feeling today? And offering reassurances and hope like, thank you for sharing, or I am here for you. These ways can keep the lines of communication open. All right. Focus on the present and take small steps. Sometimes trying to get someone with anxiety or depression to understand the bigger picture can be overwhelming. Focus on the present and what is in their control right here and right now. All right. And again, it's all about being compassionate. All right. Being compassionate. Let's say you are dealing with anxiety or you are feeling anxious or stressed. Let me just tell you a few things that you can do to cope. Okay. All right. You can take a time out. For example, you can listen to music. You can meditate. You can practice yoga. Sometimes stepping back from the problem clears your head. You can go for a walk. Okay. You should really, really try to get enough sleep. All right. When stressed, your body needs additional sleep and rest. Let me tell you, the toll that anxiety takes on the body is enormous. All right. Trust me. All right. You should take some deep breaths. Inhale and exhale slowly. These are some coping strategies. All right. Maybe even count to 10 slowly. Repeat and count to 20 if necessary. All right. You should always aim to do your best, all right, instead of aiming for perfection, which isn't possible. You should learn to be proud of however close you do get, all right? Accept that you cannot control everything. You need to learn to put your stress in perspective. Is it really as bad as you think? Humor always helps. A good laugh goes a long way, okay? All right, try to maintain a positive attitude. You should really try to make an effort to replace negative thoughts with positive ones. All right. How about this one? Learn what triggers your anxiety. Is it work, family, school, or something else you can identify? Okay. You may write it in a journal when you're feeling stressed or anxious and look for a pattern. Okay. And then, of course, talk to someone. Tell friends and family you're feeling overwhelmed and let them know how they can help you. All right. And so again, friends and family, it's important that when someone does open up to you, that you have a listening ear, okay? All right, again, it's not about you, all right? So when someone is anxious or depressed or you see that they have these obsessive-compulsive disorders, it's not about you, okay? At that time, it certainly is not about you. It's about them, okay? It's about helping them through that, all right? And sometimes you can do that by these strategies that I just mentioned to you. Okay, listening, maybe take them out. Again, humor is important. All right, all of those different things can be so helpful to those that suffer from these things. All right, so again, I am Jaden Miller, and this is my podcast, Think About It with Jaden Miller. I want you to think about all of the things that we talked about today. We talked about obsessive-compulsive disorders. We talked about some of the things that trigger, anxiety. We talked about the things that people that suffer from anxiety do that people don't understand. And then I tried to share with you some tips to manage your anxiety and stress as they relate back to these other things, the depression, the obsessive compulsive behaviors, okay? And again, I think what I want people that don't suffer from these things to take away from this is really learn to listen, learn to be more accepting. It's not about you, okay? Don't get mad at them. Don't get upset with them, okay? It's a disorder, all right? It's a disorder. It's something that they are trying and learning to deal with. Some people do it through therapy. Some people try to do it on their own, okay? But it is a disorder and one that should really, really be taken seriously, all right? Okay, so I'm going to end there again. Thank you guys for joining me for this podcast on anxiety and OCD and stress. All right. Again, lastly, I want you to like, share, and subscribe on my YouTube channel. And then on your favorite podcast platform, I want you to follow. Please mention it to your friends and families. I want more people to come and listen. I'm hopeful that, I'm able to share some subjects and, provide some perspective. But really, I want you to think about it. All right. So again, thank you guys, and I will see you on the next episode. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to Think About It with Jaden Miller. Don't forget to like and subscribe to his YouTube channel, and like and follow on your favorite podcast platform.